Hello, Soul Tribe, and welcome to Soulology Session 3. I cannot believe it's already here. This is insane. So, I am kind of really proud of this session. I don't know how it's going to sound as much when I say it out loud, but on paper, I've worked really hard on it, and I'm really just loving all of the different ideas and exercises I've came up with that I will share with you at the end of this video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But they are all for self-love, self-empowerment, and all of that. And I really think they will really help a lot of you guys, and they will really help us as we move into shadow season as well. Having these tools that I will give you at the end of this session, I think will really help ease us into shadow season because it's big and we're really going to do some shadow work in October. So it's really important to try to participate in the course as much as you can in September this month, because I'm telling you, the way that I've designed everything, it's going to work out so much better and assist us so much more in what we're doing in October. So I hope you guys enjoy this session. This is the title of this session is Mirror Mirror. It is all about self-love, self-empowerment, and love versus fear, and also a mix of a few other things in there and things from past sessions that we've talked about as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. So like I've already stated, there's going to be a lot more soul work basically this month. They're more of exercises, so you do have to kind of incorporate these things if you want these things to work, and if you want more self-love, empowerment, and just an all-around more like positively, and you guys know how I feel about that word, but a more positive vibrational frequency in your life. And if you want to attract more great things into your life, not only to yourself, but just in your surroundings and your experiences. And I really believe in the stuff that I'm telling you in this course. So, and like I always say, you can choose to incorporate some stuff and not others based on your own beliefs. You don't have to believe everything I say. I always want you guys to think for yourselves first, but I know that this is the stuff that has worked for me. And I've always told you guys since day one that I would not be telling you guys to do anything or giving you any advice or sharing anything with you that I wasn't doing myself or that I haven't done myself that works for me as well. And I am doing this stuff with you guys anyways. So there's going to be a lot more exercises and work this month because it is no secret that this is one of the biggest issues as humans, self-love, like that is one of our major issues as humans. And it leads to so many other manifestations that lead to so many issues and struggles into our lives when you really think about it. So many manifestations come from lack of self-love, such as projecting how we feel about ourselves and our lack of self-love onto others, attracting lessons and people and situations into our lives that also don't love us the way that we also don't love ourselves. It causes lack of self-confidence in the way that we look at ourselves and the way that we act, our expressions, fear of asserting ourselves, fear of standing up for ourselves, isolation and driving people away from us, getting in and staying in toxic or abusive and unhealthy situations or relationships and not following our passion, our magic, or any of that. Because we don't feel we deserve it. And we are allowing and attracting this batshit energy and patterns and pain into our lives because we think that we deserve it, right? So if you think you don't deserve something, then you think you deserve the opposite of that something, right? That's just how it goes. Letting others treat us as if our worth is not valuable because we don't think our worth is valuable, and going through drastic measures to change who we are when we don't love ourselves or how we look and much more, and all of that is just a result of self-love, and really self-destruction, self-hatred, because that's the opposite of self-love. So when you don't love yourself, you're basically in self-destruction or self-fear/hatred. You fear yourself. So instead of jumping to love in this game, right? Because it's a game, right? Just like session 1, like we talked about the game, you jump to fear and self-destruction. So instead of jumping to the love spectrum, you jump to the other one. Fear can outrule love and love can outrule fear. It's a balance. So remember, just like that quote I always bring up by Carl Jung, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own selves. And what can happen in this game of self-love and fear and self-hatred is another big game inside of a game that can go a whole other way, basically. The ego will always fight to keep its mask or identity, right? Like we talked about in August and all of the sessions we did in August. So it will tell you that you're better, that you're stronger, that you're prettier, etc. than others as well, which goes back into the whole game of ego and separation as we talked about in session 1. But the whole quote unquote better game is also living in ego as well, and is also a manifestation of low self-love or low self-worth and the lack of, right? So we suppress the parts of ourselves that we don't like or that we're scared of to shape this mask or identity that we think we want to have or appear, or that we think we want to appear to others as a certain way, basically. And I mean, if you really think about it, like if you love yourself, if you are whole and you love yourself and you are incorporating all the different parts of yourself that you love and you're becoming your own best friend, no one can really touch you. Like no one can really stop you. No one's going to mess with someone that, a person that loves themselves. And I'm not talking about like cocky, arrogance, confident, like kind of love, not necessarily confident, but like cocky and arrogant. Like I'm not talking about like conceitedness, right? I'm saying someone that truly loves themselves will have love for others, but also love themselves enough to know that yes, we're all connected, but there's certain things they're not going to allow in their lives because they love themselves to that extent, right? So they're not going to attract people that will use them and suck all their energy, because they're like, no one is going to go after a confident person that you can just tell loves themselves. Like they may, because they may want that energy, but if you truly love yourself, like normally people that have low self-worth or low confidence that will go after people as some kind of predator, predatory behavior basically, will suck people dry that already feel that way about themselves. You know what I mean? Because they're playing their own self-love game. They both are, right? So just something to think about. But anyways, so basically, I want you to think of a mask, an actual mask, like sitting on the ground, and it's blank. It has nothing on it, and it's just on the ground, and it's left outside. It's brand new, and it's on the ground, and it's left outside, somewhere in the wilderness. And take the number, take your age number, whatever age you are, and imagine that many years that the mask is laying outside somewhere on the earth. What would the mask look like? It may be in a different place, from the wind blowing it and nature doing its thing, or maybe an animal picked it up and tore it up a little bit. There's dirt all over it and all kinds of like erosion just from being outside. And now imagine yourself or your identity as that mask. Yeah. So through life, our environment, the situations that we find ourselves in, the beings that, we come into contact with, all shape who we think we are and how we label ourselves in our own mind based off of what we want others to think of us. Because of all these different beliefs, ideas, thoughts, words, feelings, all cover it up from other people, from ourselves. We were told this was wrong or this was wrong, so now we have this fundamental belief that we can't act like that, or we can't look like that, or we can't show this, like whatever. And we will get more into all of that next month during shadow season, because those are the things that we're going to work on, that mask, right, and that shadow. But basically, when we feel we are or want to be quote unquote better, we are stuck in an ego game. Because remember, anything outside of you won't truly make you whole. It won't truly make you quote unquote better. We have to look internally. When we want to be better, we are basically saying that we aren't better. We are saying that we lack betterment, basically, right? We are saying we can't accept ourselves for who we truly are because we're looking outside of ourselves to feel complete. I mean, that's the core of it. You can't be quote unquote better when you already have everything. It's basically like, you can't be better when you already have everything you want. It's internal. You just have to accept yourself to be able to access it, right? So self-love is already inside of you. You just have to break through all of the quote unquote erosion, covering it up, and be willing to accept all the parts of yourself. Trying to be quote unquote better or more enlightened or a good person is all another ego game, because you already are. You're running around chasing your own tail. This isn't saying that you can't transform parts of yourself, because you can, but it all starts internally. The power of self-love is fucking huge, you guys. Like, no joke, it's so huge, it's not even funny. I mean, it can literally like change the way you look. It can change, once you, it's like I was saying before, kind of like in other sessions and discussions where we talked about, like, once you accept the thing that you've been fighting that you really don't want to accept, it's like you kind of realize, like, it's not true anyway. Like, the whole opposite is not true, or it is true, or whatever. Like, the whole thing with, like, when we were talking about depression in the last discussion, and I was saying, like, once you accept whatever it is you're fighting, like, say you're fighting that you feel like a piece of shit, and once you accept that, like, you accept that you're a piece of shit, you realize you're not a piece of shit. It's like crazy how that works. Well, it's the same thing with this, basically. So when you accept, the things about yourself that you hate, it's like those things start changing and you start seeing them through a different lens, basically. And literally, and I don't know if anyone else, sees this, but I see this. When I look in the mirror now, I swear to God, like, the features that I've had on my face and my body my whole entire life are completely different. And I feel like I look completely different, and I'm happy with the way I look. And I was happy with the way I looked before that, like, since I've been on this journey of self-love myself. But I mean, I wasn't always happy with the way I looked, but I was happy with the way I looked before I started noticing things about me changing. But now it's like, holy shit, it's like, half the time, like, when I take pictures of myself or when I look at myself, I'm like, who is this person? Like, she's freaking gorgeous. Holy shit. Like, and I've never thought I would, like, be that kind of person about myself, right? Like, it's not like a conceited thing. It's just like, wow, like, everything that I hated about myself it seems like has completely changed since I started loving it. And so that's what I'm basically saying by that. So, anyways, so the power of self-love is huge. It can change your life, or in other words, bring things to the surface that were already inside of you, but you couldn't see before, for you to use at your advantage, right? So, for instance, if I want patience, let's say, I feel like I want patience. I feel like I'm way too impatient, because if I'm saying I want patience, I'm saying that I'm impatient, right? You can't look at one without the other. Balance, right? Like we learned in August. So if I'm saying I want patience, I can't really say that I'm not impatient if I want more patience. Like, if I'm saying I want patience, I'm impatient, basically. And I'm saying I don't have patience. So basically, that's not true. I do have patience within. It's by becoming less impatient that I find patience, right? That I find the patience within myself, balance. So this is true for self-love as well. If I want to have more love for myself in my life, then I have to balance it out and subtract basically some of the fear that I have with myself, because everything really stems from fear, even hate, and we'll go into that in a minute. But once again, it's a balancing game. When you feel that you're lacking something, then you have too much of the opposite thing, basically. You've been, feeding the opposite side of the spectrum way too much. We can't talk about self-love without addressing the reasons we don't have it, right? Or we don't think that we have it, basically. We think we don't have it. Along with the internal game we play within ourselves, chasing our own tail round and round, which always leads back to the same person, ourselves. So, I mean, it's a whole nother game inside of a game, right? So, or how someone else made us feel, which is still ourselves, right? We're feeling it. Like, yeah, they did stuff. Like, everything around the mask environment did stuff, right? The mask, you can't leave a mask outside and expect the environment not to, like, do stuff to the mask, right? It's going to happen. And that's what happens to us as humans. Like, we're born and we go through our lives, and our environments shape us and leave stuff behind with us, and we attach ourselves to things, and things attach to us. And then we have all this gunk on us that, shapes who we think we are to other people, and how we think other people see us, and how we think we should be, and just all of this stuff that we have to, like, unlearn, basically, that we have to go back through with a fine-tooth comb and figure out and connect the dots back to who we were, so we can balance it out, basically. So anyways, now we're going to talk about fear and love a little bit more. So before we go any further, I feel it's important to really have a think on what love and fear actually are, despite what Google will tell you about the definition of love, which is basically, quote unquote, an intense feeling of deep affection, end quote, which is a horrible definition, in my opinion, personally. But love is hard to define. So, I mean, there's that. But so let's just start with fear, basically, because fear is the root cause of basically everything that is not love, usually, right? So also even hate, because hate, most would say, that is the opposite of love, right? But Google says basically fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous or likely to cause pain or a threat. Now, I agree with that definition. And hate is, quote unquote, a feeling of an intense or passionate dislike for someone, end quote. So normally fear and hate run hand in hand. One is a manifestation of the other. So we know love has to be the opposite of all of that, right? So I love the quote that I've mentioned before to you guys, I'm pretty sure, that it goes, God loved birds so much he built trees. Man loved birds so much he built cages. And the funny thing is as humans, we can feel love, fear, and hatred all at the same time. And going back to that quote, like God built trees for the birds. He loved the birds. He gave them something to nest on, right? Men loved birds so much he built cages. He wanted to cage them in and hold on to them forever and look at them forever and not let them fly away, not let them be free. And don't we do that with so many things that we say that we love, right? We do that with our children. We do that with our relationships. We do that with anything that we form that love connection with. It almost turns into fear more than love. And then we let the fear override the love. And we do that with ourselves too. And it's like, why would we do that? I can't really answer that, honestly. I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but I'm not really sure why we love to cling to fear, why we jump to that end of the spectrum a lot quicker than we do love. Fear feels safer, right? Fear feels like it's going to keep us safe. Love is a little more unknown. Love is so much bigger than all of us, and we can't control it, I guess, maybe. So anyways, so we can feel love, fear, and hatred all at the same time. And this all goes back to session 1 and the illusion that love and fear have to be separate, right? So what does this mean? No matter how much you think you fear or hate yourself, you also love yourself. It's somewhere in you. You just have to access it and work through the self-fear and hate to find the self-love. It's also an acceptance game, like we were talking about before. But like I've told you before, some of what the worst times in my life were, where I truly, truly hated myself, like deeply, and I've went over this, but also led me to loving myself and finding my power, asserting myself, finding that assertiveness in myself and that confidence in myself today, right? Acceptance and walking through the fear and the hate of self helps you unlock self-love and empowerment. And we're going to get more into that in shadow season. I don't want you guys to get too deep into all of that in September, because we're going to work on that all together in October. But I am going to give you exercises and stuff here in a few to help you with self-love. That'll be great tools to help you also during shadow season once we get in there. And it'll basically prep you for shadow season. This is like a huge prep for shadow season. So anyways, so we are basically going to be using certain tricks and tips for our soul work this month to help get to know ourselves more and also accept ourselves more and love ourselves more. But first, let's talk about a few more things before we get into that really quick. I want you to think about a few more things here. So the first thing is you can't wholly love until you love yourself, right? And also just the whole love versus fear thing. I want to dive a little deeper into that. So, a lot of people have a misconception of what love truly is. And personally, my belief is that love lets go, right? Love lets go. Love understands that love is nurturing, but it also understands that you have your own path. You know what I mean? So like an easy example really quick of what I think of love personally is like with my child, with my son. So, if I always knew, when I was pregnant, like me and his dad would have conversations about who we thought he may like become as a person or what the type of person he would be. You know what I mean? Like those talks you have in the early stages of pregnancy or in pregnancy, whatever. And, there's always that if, like, well, what if he is, homosexual, or what if he likes to do girl things, or what if he's just different somehow, like out of the societal norm, basically, right? And basically it's kind of like I always knew that I didn't care, that I would love him no matter what, and that even if that happened, that's completely fine with me, that I would still love him and I would still be accepting of him, and that I just wanted him to do what made him truly happy, to where he could be his authentic self, right? And that's like the kind of love that most of us, I should say, have for our children, right? Like we want them to be free, happy, but we also want them to be safe. So which part is fear and which part is love? You know what I mean? A lot of people would say, well, all of it's love, and yeah, you can look at it that way, but the safe part is fear, in my opinion, right? Because that's that fear notion that we have in all of us, that's like, like don't go do this or don't go do that, or hold on, wait to walk across the street, and we do have to guide our children. We do have to have, like, it's natural to have fear with your children. I'm not saying that it's not, trust me, like it is totally natural to have fear with your children, and obviously we have to guide them and to keep them safe and whatnot. But where it gets out of control, and that's why I'm saying fear and love can work together and create a balance, and where it gets out of control is when, if I were to say, there is no way in hell you're going to be happy and be your authentic self, because I'm scared of what that's going to make you look like and what people are going to think of you, and I'm scared of what that's going to make me look like and what people are going to think of me, basically, right? So that's where it gets, you're basically taking the side of fear over love, right? And both can outpower each other. And that's why, like, when you fall in love with someone, or if you are like just totally hot over someone, you meet someone and there's just this intense connection and you're like, oh my God, and it's like puppy love and you're like in high school again, but you just got out of a really bad relationship, actually like a really bad 5 relationships over the last, like, I don't know, 6-7 years, and it's been hell, and you're like, I can't do this again, I'm so scared, like I don't want to get hurt again. That fear, right? But that love, that intense attraction, that intense, like, just feeling good and wanting to go explore the unknown, right? Like that will normally, not all the time, but normally overpower that fear, because you want to take a chance because you're so attracted to that person and there's this intense connection and you're so passionate and it's so crazy and it's like puppy love and you're just like, oh my God, like that is love versus fear, basically, right? So, but a lot of people will have grown up to believe that you have to put others first, that you're selfish if you put yourself first, that, you are, you have to love others before you can love yourself. And that is totally not true, because, and I'm going to give you an example, basically, a couple more examples. So, the first example is, so one of my exes, I used to think was like probably the guy that probably loved me the most out of anybody that I've ever been with, like romantically, because I knew that he would literally go to like ends for me, like, I mean, possibly even do like some crazy illegal shit for me if he had to, you know what I mean? Like I knew he would do whatever for me to keep me safe and to have me alive with him, whatever, right? And we think like, okay, like, yeah, we would do that like probably for our children too, because we do have that instinct in us to keep them, that earthly like mothering instinct in us to keep them safe, or parental instinct in us to keep them safe. But it's a little bit different, like when, okay, so like I was saying before, obviously you'd have to take love and fear into consideration and see which one you're feeding more, right? But with this situation that I'm particularly talking about with my ex, I remember when I got with my boyfriend I have now, we were talking about him one night, like maybe a couple months, we had been dating for a couple months, and I was like, yeah, like he literally like loved me like no one else has loved me. And I was like explaining to him, and I was like, yeah, like he probably would have like literally like just done probably like anything, like even like broke like mass laws or went to prison for the rest of his life or whatever for me. And my boyfriend now is like, Tawny, that's not love. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, no one else has ever done that for me before. Like, what do you mean that's not love? Like, and I stayed with that guy, the past guy, for like a long time because of that reason. He was like my safety net because of fear, right? I don't think I really actually loved him or had those kinds of feelings for him. I just felt safe with him. You know what I mean? I was scared and I was going through a lot of hell. Like, that was like the beginning of my personal hell right there that I shared with you guys. So, yeah, but, my boyfriend now is like, Tanya, that is not love. Like, if he truly loved himself, then he would have put himself first in some of those situations, or if some of those situations were to ever happen, and so, and now looking back on it, that wasn't love. That was his own fear, where he was willing to he probably would have been willing to sacrifice himself, his livelihood, his life, his own children and whatnot for me. Like, that's sick, that's really unhealthy. That's unhealthy as shit, and today, I don't want someone that would do that. Back then I would have died for someone that could do that. But now, I look back on it and I'm like, ew, that's not healthy at all. You know what I mean? So, just another example. And that just goes to show, two half people don't make a whole person. That just does not happen. Okay. You don't get together, not even knowing yourself, and just completely broken to pieces with another person that's completely broken and just make a whole person. You know what I mean? That it just doesn't happen. Yeah, you can find yourself while you're with someone and they can find themselves while they're with you. But, at the same time, it's a growing process that also has to happen individually and not together, right? It has to happen individually because no one else can get inside you internally and fix the things inside of you or, overcome the things inside of you that you can. No one can. You know what I mean? No one can help you heal emotionally over something. Someone can guide you. Someone can give you advice. Someone can talk to you. But the emotional part, the thought process part, that's all you. That's all you, baby. So, and that's why, I always stress during this course for you guys to always think and feel for yourselves, because yes, we are all doing this together. And yes, I don't want anybody to feel alone, but at the same time, I want you to always keep that balance and know in the back of your mind that technically you are alone and you're always going to be alone, whether you have people around you living with you, whatever or not. And that is why you need to be your own best friend, because once you become your own best friend, you become powerful, you become unstoppable. And I'm not talking about power as in I rule the world and I'm evil type of power, reigning over people. I'm talking about having power within yourself and knowing yourself. And when you have that self-love and that power, no one's going to screw with you. You're not going to attract dumb shits into your life that are going to try to toy with you and use you and see how hard they can press before you crack all the way. You know what I mean? You're not going to attract those kinds of people into your life anymore, or those kinds of situations. And it's going to be completely different. Your vibration is going to be on a completely different level. The dimension, the reality that you live in is going to be on a completely different level that's going to match you. And yeah, that's why this is so important. And when you really think about it, this is the biggest struggle that we as humans go through. If we're depressed, if we're angry, if we're sad, if we're mad, if we're grieving, if we have guilt, if we have remorse, if we have shame, if we are not emotionally okay, it is stemming somewhere from self-love and fear, right? And so this is, and it manifests itself in all kinds of different ways, all kinds of games inside of games, right? So anyways, and then the next example I want to give to you really quick is when I went on my plant healing ceremony in August. There was this girl there, and that really liked talking to me for some reason. And she was one of those people that, it's funny because she was an Aries, but yet she acted very, very, very Virgo. And just the fact that she was pulled to me, and God, you got to have a lot of Virgo in your chart, because I'm always surrounded by Virgos. But anyway, so she was one of those people that was basically brought up to where, you know, she didn't get a lot of attention growing up, and so she's one of those people that just gives and gives and gives and gives and gives and gives and gives everybody else attention and doesn't keep any for herself, feels bad if she does like one thing for herself, and has stayed in a really shit relationship with someone that has just cheated on her, used her, whatever, but it is her kid's father, so therefore she feels selfish if she leaves them because they're, you know, what about the kids, right? And that whole game right there. And so she just keeps talking and talking and talking about the situation, explaining it all to me. And finally I'm like, but okay, so you're not leaving because you don't want to be selfish, right? Like you don't want to hurt his feelings. You don't want to hurt your kids' feelings. So you're sacrificing your own self, right? To not be selfish, basically, is how she had it in her mind. And then she was like, yeah. And I was like, so you're going to keep your kids in a home where you're unhappy, where you guys don't get along, you guys argue all the time, you and your significant other argue all the time, you know, 'cause she told me that, you know, and, you know, where you're unhappy, he's obviously unhappy, but you said he's going to be more unhappy if you leave, you know. Well, what if it's the best thing that you could have ever done for him? What if he ends up finding himself, you know? Like, what if, yeah, he may go through a dark period, but he comes out on the other end and he finds himself, right? And then what if your kids end up seeing you happy, and so they understand why it happened? And the stuff that you're putting your kids through now, just because you don't want to be selfish, this game that you're telling yourself in your head, that's really just an illusion. It's not even real. It's actually a delusion, right? Like, depending on how you look at it, like, that's kind of selfish too, wouldn't you say? Like, you're staying because you're afraid. You're afraid to hurt so-and-so's feelings. So, and this person's feelings and that person's feelings. So that's your own fear, right? So you're keeping your kids in a dysfunctional relationship, basically, and because of your own fear. Isn't that selfish? And she just was like, she just looked at me mind blown. And she was like, I've never thought about it that way. And I was like, I mean, I'm just wondering, you know, like, that makes sense to me. Like, kind of does, kind of doesn't, depending on how you look at it. But I mean, and yeah, so that's just another example, right? Like, we tell ourselves like, oh, we have to do X, Y, and Z because we're being unselfish. We can't focus on ourselves, heaven forbid, because we don't want to be conceited. We don't want to be selfish. But yet, the reason that we're focusing on others is normally very selfish, right? Like, well, I don't want so-and-so to leave me, or I don't want to be alone, or I don't want this, I don't want that, or I don't want them to feel like this because that'll make me feel like this, right? If you're doing something because you don't want so-and-so to feel some type of way, it's because it's not because you don't want them to feel some type of way. You don't want them to feel some type of way because then it's going to make you feel some type of way, right? So it all goes back to you, basically, is what that whole thing is that I'm talking about here. So anyway, so what is the goal? What is the goal, right? What is the goal with self-love? What is the goal with love in general? Well, it's very hard, but the goal here is to love without expecting anything in return. And it's almost impossible to do because none of us can truly be unselfish, right? We are all selfish. We all have an ego. We all have that thing in us that tells us we're different, that tells us like, you know, I don't want to share this. These are my last this is my last bag of chips, or, you know, I just need that time to myself. And, you know, and then the ego tells us, well, that's selfish, right? Like, and it's kind of a balance, right? Because like we talked about last month, you can't full on like just destroy your ego forever, right? You can strip it down, you can shape it, you can polish it, you can, you know, start noticing when your ego is the one talking to you, and which mask it's hiding under for you. But that whole thing that she was playing with herself at my ceremony, like, that was a whole ego game in itself, right? Like, hiding under a mask of being unselfish, like, and it's insane. But anyway, so the goal is to try to love without expecting anything in return, to try to be there for others without expecting anything in return, but also loving yourself. And you can't really truly be there for others without being there for yourself, right? And that's why, you know, even though Virgo season is service to others and helping others, I want us to be kind to others. I want us to be, you know, have like random acts of kindness for others and tell others like compliments and things like that. And, you know, but also have your boundaries, have your limits. Like, okay, like, I'm just trying to be nice to you. I wasn't trying to like be your 24/7 life coach. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta go, right? Like, I gotta worry about me. Like, I gotta take a break. I can't worry about you right now. I'm sorry. Like, you know, because then you're not only not helping them, even though you're telling yourself you're not, because then you're almost enabling them depending on how you look at it and depending on what the situation is. But normally, yeah, you're enabling them because you're preventing them from learning the lesson themselves of getting through something themselves and finding their own strength, you know? And if you're telling them the same thing over and over and they're not listening, like, how are you even helping them anyway, right? So just something to think about, food for thought. So yeah, it's, you know, we can't get rid of the ego. So we're all selfish in our own way, right? Like there's no way to not be selfish. It's just really trying to, you know, it's really like, okay, so for instance, really quick, in AA, right? Like you guys know I used to do the whole AA thing. So in AA, you know, they tell you to like help others, give back. And I would do that like all the time, right? And yeah, it did make you feel good. But when you really get down to it, and they'll even tell you, you know what I mean? They even say it in AA, like it's not being unselfish, because when you're giving to others, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it to keep yourself sober, right? You're doing it to feel good about yourself, right? So in some way, it's always going back to you, you know? And if you want to put another word on it than selfish, that's fine, you know? But if you don't like the word selfish, then you should probably check that out too, you know, and see what's going on with that. So yeah, anyways, but this month we are finding our beauty and all of the little places that we try to hide it and all of the different details that we don't like about ourselves. We're trying to find beauty in everything, because beauty is darkness, even though you may think it's light, and we are going to get into why it's darkness next month, but it is mainly darkness. It comes from a dark area and it's beautiful. It is so fucking beautiful. You know what I mean? A rose is so beautiful, and it stands for transformation, which is viewed as dark, you know, in Scorpio in the 8th house, and astrology is the sign of transformation, and Scorpio is the underworld, right? So we grow from these dark places. We grow by facing our fears. We grow by embracing the darker parts of us that we try to hide, our shadow side, right? So yeah, and then also this month we're going to be studying Virgo and the 6th house in the birth chart for our bonus astrology class next week on Wednesday. I forget the exact date. Just check the calendar, the Soulology September calendar, and you'll see it. So definitely make sure you join us for that. It's probably going to be a live. I'm not sure yet. I'll update you guys. But yeah, so now we are going to get into the few ways I really want to talk to you guys about. And this is basically your soul work for this month. And it's a lot. I'm just letting you know it's a lot. But it's something that you can incorporate into your everyday lives, and that I really feel like is going to help you with self-love. Because now you realize how big of a deal self-love is. I mean, it's a fucking big deal. It is the root of it always goes back to that. I mean, really, if you think about it, it always goes back to that. So, anyways, even people that are like cocky and it seems like they have all this self-love and like they're almost like too much in it and like it seems conceited, like no, it's actually the opposite. They don't have self-love either. They're just masking it. You know, their ego is just really good at making them believe that they do, right? So anyways, okay, so this is your soul work. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, a notebook. If you got your Soulology notebook, good for you. If you don't have a Soulology notebook, just get a notebook and slap the word Soulology on it and get it out and take some notes on what I'm about to say. And I will be posting it when I get a chance in the group and on here on Patreon as well. If you forget or whatever, I'll be posting it all on here as well, but I just don't know when. So it's good to take notes, and that way you can like remind yourself and stuff too. So these are your exercises for the month of September and the soul work that you need to be working on if you want to incorporate self-love and empowerment into your life and start kind of, you know, taking back the fear a little bit, subtracting the fear out of your life a little bit, okay? So anyway, so the first thing is what we've kind of already been working on with the I Am Magic Challenge. It is passion, creativity, talents, hobbies, goals. So when you do these things, when you spark that inspiration, that fire, you can feel it. Like when you're in full creative mode or you're in full like passion mode, you can feel it. Like that's why I was saying earlier, like when that puppy love comes, we're like, I can't take this. Like, you know what I mean? And it outdoes the fear, right? So when you find that like passion, that thing that you just love, that you can't get enough of, that, you know, creativity, like any talents you have, any hobbies you have, any goals you have, like mainly passion, talents, hobbies, and creativities, but we can throw goals in there too because it also will help with this exercise. So when you find that and you find it, like it builds up self-confidence. It truly does. It builds your self-worth. It builds your self-love. It builds your confidence. It really it releases the magic, that we've been talking about lately inside of you and helps you feel better about yourself. So and the goals part is, along with the rest I've named, is when we accomplish things, like no matter how big or how small, when we build back up, like when we accomplish these things, we feel good about ourselves. We learn that we can rely on ourselves, because a lot of us, self-trust is an issue as well. And that's a game of self-love, right? That's a manifestation of self-love. So we don't trust ourselves, because we not only can we be our own best friend, right? But what's the opposite? We can be our own worst enemy as well, right? So when we start to lose that trust within ourselves because we haven't accomplished X, Y, and Z, or we still haven't done this, or how did I forget to do this, or why didn't I do this, right? Like that starts going at our own self-trust. So when you start accomplishing things and you have something to be proud of for yourself, that is one of the most powerful fucking ways to build up confidence, self-trust, self-love, empowerment, all of it. You're like, you know what? I'm a fucking beast. Like I did that and I never thought I could do that, right? Like, or I never thought I would finish that, or I can't even believe that I actually just did that, right? Like that is when you really start building that. So when we achieve goals, we feel proud of ourselves, which in return also inspires others. And then others are like, oh my God, look at you. You know what I mean? And so we're not only inspiring ourselves, we're inspiring others by doing this without even trying to inspire others. You know what I mean? And so that's why, many of you may be here because you've seen what I've done, right? And then you're like, wow, like something about that has attracted you to here. You know what I mean? And so it's almost like contagious, but it's a good contagious, right? So anyways, if you truly want to help people, if that is your passion, this is why you must help yourself first and build your own self up first, because that passion, that creativity, those hobbies, like that passion that ignites inside of you will also be contagious to others, right? And that's another good example of why you must help yourself first. So anyways, the next thing is to build yourself up, empower yourself. And by doing this, how to do this basically is talk to yourself. I know that sounds so stupid and you don't want to seem like a crazy person, but I do it all the time, like literally all the time. I talk to myself. And this, like, I've always kind of talked to myself here and there, but this really started, I was going through like a really, really rough time last year. And it got kind of dark there for a minute. My depression came back, my mental health came back for a minute, and it was kind of dark, and I literally, like, the world around me was falling apart. Like, I was losing everything, basically. Not in, like, basically me and my boyfriend now, we were having relationship problems. I had to move. I didn't have a place to go. I thought I was going to be homeless. It was, like, really, really scary and intense. Fear kicked in and all of that, but I had no choice every day but to get up and keep it going. Like, I had literally no choice to, like, lay around and, like, cry and feel sorry for myself. You know what I mean? I was scared shitless, but that fear helped motivate me. And that's, like, another good reason why we also need fear. You know what I mean? Why fear is not all bad. But anyways, so I had to talk to myself every day in the car. Like, I would just talk to myself like crazy. And I would just go back and forth with myself, and that literally helped me. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was like I could, like, carry out a conversation that I would normally have in my head with my own self and, like, hear it out loud and be like, whoa, And so it's basically you're becoming your own cheerleader. You know what I mean? Like, you're literally becoming your own cheerleader. Like, telling yourself you can do it, basically. Like, so literally cheering yourself on throughout your day and throughout your experiences, throughout any challenges you face. It's like, all right, girl, we got this. You know what I mean? Like, when I say that to myself, like, all right, Tani, we got this. You know what I mean? Like, that is such a motivator. And so I really want you guys to try to do that if you can. Okay. So anyways, moving on. The next one is say what you mean and mean what you say. Be more assertive and go through with what you say you're going to do. Also, say no when you don't want something, or say yes when you do, right? Because so many times we will find ourselves saying no to something we really want to do, right? Or we'll say yes to something we really don't want to do, and we feel like there's a bad feeling, we shouldn't do this, and then it ends up turning bad. And that also knocks out our self-trust. And so we're like, we feel like our own worst enemy because we let ourselves down again. We're like, I went against myself. You know what I mean? I went against myself. And how can you be your own best friend if you don't trust your own best friend? You know what I mean? If you go against your own best friend, it doesn't work like that. So, that, and to assert yourself, to not stay quiet when you feel like you have to speak up, not just like, oh, I'm angry and I'm going to tell this motherfucker, you know what I mean? Like, no, like, actually let yourself be assertive. If you feel in your soul, and how to tell this is you'll feel it in your gut, or it's intuitive, and you're like, you know what? No, I need to say something. I need to stand up for myself, or this is not okay. Like, these people are walking all over me and it's happened forever now, and I need to say something. You know what I mean? But you need to do it in a mature way. That's the thing. When you assert yourself, you have to find a way to do it without hatred, right? Because we're trying to incorporate love. So it's doing it out of love and respect. So that's that. So yeah, doing something that you really don't want to, it is basically like intuitively or in your gut, like you're going against yourself, which builds self-doubt, breaks self-trust, etc. Sorry, I'm just reading what I wrote. And this brings us to our next topic. So, relationships. Had to add that in here since we're talking about love. So relationships is the next little topic we're going to talk about to incorporate for the month. So, but not just like, you're not like just trying to incorporate relationships. It's more about what you do in your relationship. So since you attract how you feel and what you feel and how you believe about yourself, right? Since you do that, if you feel unworthy, or undeserving, that is what you will attract, right? So it's not only important to say no and yes when you feel compelled to do so, but also to build up self-trust and confidence, when focusing on the kind of relationships you want, or the kind of relationships you already have and keep in your life, because everyone is a reflection of you, like we learned last month, right? So, if you're keeping shitty relationships around in your life that just are not doing it for you, that are not, pushing you and helping you evolve and grow, and they're just stagnant, or they're toxic, or, it's like just bringing you down, and not helping you go, like not helping build you up, then these are going to be a constant reminder of how much you hate yourself, right? Because it's their reflections, and they're going to pull that self-hatred out of you more and more. Like, that's contagious too, right? So you have to be able to, have relationships in your life that do not provoke that out of you, that do not keep, that aren't contagious, that aren't fear contagious, basically, or self-hatred contagious. So anyways, then the next thing we have for September that I want you guys to work on is also facing fears. So when you face fears, you build up courage, you build up experience, confidence, wisdom, appreciation, accomplishment. Like, you feel all of these things and you feel proud of yourself. Like, wow, I've been putting that off for a long time because I've been so scared to do that, or I didn't know the outcome. I was scared of the unknown, and now I just did it. Look at me go. So pay attention to your fears this month that come lurking. And I don't expect you to face all of them, but write them down, because we're going to need those in shadow season, right? Not necessarily so you can face them, but more so you can internalize them and figure out what in you is so scared, right? And that's something we're going to work on in shadow season. So, but yeah, if you want to face fears, if you have fears around goals that you've been needing to do, or people in your life that you've been meaning to cut out or kind of disassociate from or say something to about something, like, you can definitely try to incorporate that and stand up, and face those fears. If you feel like you can't right now, then write it down. You know what I mean? Just write it down. Anyways, and then all of these things that we've named so far, if you end up doing any of these things this month and you incorporate these things, I want you to write the situations down as well, so we can go over them in the discussions. And I forgot to tell you guys, but at the end of the month, that last discussion that we're going to have is a monthly processing. So I added that. So instead of just the sessions and the live discussions, at the end of the month, our last live discussion is actually going to be a monthly processing, where we go through our month and really talk about what we've learned, how much we've grown, our transformational process, our spiritual development process, our soul alignment process, and really talk about, what we think we kind of need to incorporate for the next month that we maybe didn't do a good job of this month, or what we did do that we're so proud of, just all of that stuff. So anyways, the next one is dancing and getting in touch with your body. So dancing seriously boosts your confidence. And I've been working on this for myself because I have my own issue with dancing. And we'll go over that in shadow season. But I've been working on this for myself. So I've been trying to dance on Snapchat, and it's been very embarrassing and very awkward and very cringy, but I've been trying because I dance all the time when I'm by myself. I just don't want to dance in front of other people because that's a big fear of mine, because I was bullied in middle school for doing that. So in my head, it's like dancing bad, can't do that in front of people, check, okay. So anyways, but even if you don't have a fear of dancing in front of people, just dancing will help you. It helps just release your energy. It helps you release your body. It helps you with confidence, whether you're a good dancer or not, because I'm not. But just the fact, like listening to a song that really gets you upbeat, like that really gets you going, and just feeling it and dancing to it can help tremendously, okay? And then also getting in touch with your body, being naked more, like as silly as that sounds, and I understand some of you guys might not be able to, but when the kids go to sleep or when no one's home, walk around your house naked, dance naked, look at your body naked, touch your body, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying like masturbate, although that definitely could help too, but I'm just saying like really get in touch with your body and, touch yourself more. Don't be afraid to like hug yourself, like hug yourself, right? And, tell yourself like you are safe. Like I have you are safe, right? That is how you like really can get close to yourself, because how do we get close to people, right? So if you do that with yourself, then what, right? So, like when we look in the mirror, we either hate what we see or there's something could be better, right? Well, it's just like, okay, yeah, I don't normally like that right there, but like, okay, like I accept you, I love you, like it's all good, girl, you know what I mean? Because our imperfections make us beautiful. We just don't see that ourselves. So anyways, if the next one is if you wear makeup all the time. So this is mainly only for those of you that wear makeup like all the time. I think that not even all the time, just if you wear it as basically a mask, if you use it as your mask to the world, right? If you feel insecure about how you look without makeup, basically try wearing no makeup as much as possible just for the month, just to get in touch with that natural beauty, to get used to you without makeup and what you look like without makeup, and to really just attract that natural beauty inside of you and pull it out. So the last one, guys, this has been a long one, I know. The last one is complimenting others and looking for beauty in everything. And this goes along with complimenting others, basically. So if you start looking for the beauty in everything, then you start attracting that beauty to you, right? So when you compliment others, when you're nice to others, like that comes back to you basically, and you start feeling better about yourself because you're helping other people feel better about themselves, and you're also doing all these other things to help you feel good about yourself as well on top of it. And then other people start complimenting you, and then it just kind of bounces back and forth basically. So and complimenting others is kind of like a manifestation of looking for the beauty in everything. And that's what I really want you to pay attention to, is looking for the beauty in everything. So anything that you're like, I don't like that, or I'm scared of that, or that pisses me off, like look for the beauty. Even if it's just the tiniest amount, look for the beauty in it, because I promise you there's some kind of beauty in it. Even if you don't see it at first, there is. So that is everything. Also, if you guys have any self-love tricks, experiments that you want to share, basically, not experiments, but basically any exercises, that's the word I was looking for, self-love exercises that you want to share, self-love, empowerment, all of that exercises that you want to share with us, please go ahead and share it in the Soul Tribe Facebook group. Just go ahead and post it in there so everyone can see what you may do to help yourself with self-love and all of that. But yeah, guys, I hope you liked this session. I put so much work into this and I love it. Like, I really love it. And I didn't know if I was going to love it as much once I read it out loud and read everything out loud and talked about everything out loud, but I still do. So I hope this is so helpful to you guys. I'm going to be doing all these things too, so you're not alone. And I will be posting the different exercises in the group in here on Patreon as well. There is 8 exercises that you can do, that you can incorporate into your life. We're still doing the I Am Magic challenge. We'll probably be doing another challenge here in another week or two once the I Am Magic challenge ends. And if you have any ideas for that, definitely feel free to share. But yeah, so the self-love exercises are your soul work. So definitely make sure you're keeping track of what you're doing, writing it down, keeping track of your fears, keeping track of all of that stuff. And definitely make sure you're posting your I Am Magic post if you're doing the challenge. I love seeing those. And yeah, I love you guys. I will see you this Wednesday, which is the 4th, I believe, Wednesday night, the 4th, for our first live discussion on this session. So I love you, Soul Fam, and I will see you soon. Bye.